take a look at the behavior of believers in God and whether they, exhibit sort of something better. So there's, and I think we're going to find that they don't. So there's lots of religious claims. There's the claim that God is all-knowing, God is all-powerful, and God is benevolent. Okay, these are claims that you hear all the time. You hear that God created the universe. He created human beings, so he knows how they're made, and he can presumably talk to them. He can communicate to them both directly and through prayer and through this Holy Ghost. So part of him is in those people. And there's just this great communication path between God and believers. And God is the author of morality, supposedly. And that's another claim that you hear. And so it's very clear that people who believe in God and who follow God and believe, devote their lives to God should be moral people.
And in this case, you're talking about, obviously, the people who devote themselves to a God who meets these
standards, right? So yeah, Christianity and Islam fit with this, and I think Judaism too, for that matter. So all the big three Abrahamic religions, I think, fit into this. So, okay, so we have all these claims, but based on these claims, we should see that churches should never have scandals. We shouldn't see individuals like Ted Haggard, fall into scandals. But you can easily say, oh, those are just the individuals involved, right? But in the aggregate, God should get things right. So religious communities should be obviously better than non-religious communities because they have all these God believers doing the right moral thing under the power of God. And religious countries should be better on most measures. Well, is this true? And the answer is no. No, even with God on your side, we don't have this sort of thing. We don't have godly societies as better than non-godly ones. Now, maybe there's a religious explanation for this. Maybe God is testing these people. Maybe he's saying, well, just like the Jews, the most persecuted people in the planet, perhaps, at least the ones who claim the most persecution, is supposedly God's chosen people. But maybe God's playing these sorts of games with Christians and Muslims as well. I don't know. So my take on this, my reason for not believing that godly, or my explanation for why godly societies are not better, it should always be a slam dunk, why they're not better, is because God beliefs are false, A, and B, godly societies amplify these false beliefs because they aggregate these false beliefs into false action and falsely based policies that ultimately cause measurable harm. So these are the reasons why I believe that these things are false. And my main source today is from an article in a scholarly journal. The journal is called the Journal of Religion and Society. The article is by Gregory S. Paul. It's called Cross-National Correlations of Quantifiable Social Health with Popular Religiosity and Secularism in the Prosperous Democracies. And it's a mouthful, and if you want to write in, I'll be glad to give you the link to this. This is a very interesting study that looked at religious belief in a number of prosperous democracies in the sort of first world, and compares a number of social ills, things like life expectancy, or sexually transmitted diseases, or teen pregnancy, and these sorts of things. And generally it finds that there's a correlation between religious beliefs and something bad happening in these various societies. Now, if there is a God, this should never happen. There should never be no correlation at all. In fact, there should be a correlation the other way, that belief in God should give you a better society, because that's the claim, that religious societies are more moral. That's the claim, and that claim is false. Okay, that's just plain old false. And so what I want to do today is take a look at some of these different metrics and give you my armchair explanation for why this is. And let me make a couple little caveats here. Atheist societies or secular societies have people in them that believe stupid things. And we actually had one of the people who are fans of our show write in and say, hey, I live in Japan, and these folks believe in ghosts. They want to have, religious people do ceremonies for them and all these sort of goofy things. But when And yes, there's a lot of sort of goofy beliefs out there. But when you don't have them aggregating into the same sort of channel, when not everybody in the society believes the same thing, then they kind of cancel each other out. It's like noise. But when people believe goofy things all the same way, those things tend to get amplified, and those tend to bring out problems that you can see. So today I want to talk about the valuing of life, sexuality and control of sexuality, and just some other general measures of sort of societal well-being, and talk about how these look. And I'll give my explanation. Now, these are all correlations I'm talking about, which there should be none of, so the religious folks have a problem already. But I'm going to give my armchair explanation for why I think these things are causation, why I think religious belief causes these social ills, and people are welcome to call me up and tell me I'm wrong, or give me some better advice, and or you know, tell me why God's in the mix and God's doing these terrible things. So let's talk about homicide. Okay, homicide is correlated with religious belief. Let's talk about life expectancy. Lower life expectancy is correlated with religious belief. Infant mortality is correlated with religious belief. Suicide is kind of a mixed bag. Teen suicide is correlated, but suicide in general is not, and we can take a look at some of those. There's a companion article also published in the Journal of Religion and Society that talks about homicide. It's called Religious Cosmologies and Homicide Rates Among Nations, and it's a similar study, although it looks at homicide directly and looks more into what might be the causes. And one of the things they come up with is very interesting, is they come up with this idea that societies that have a strong belief in good and evil tend to have a higher homicide rate. And they think it's basically because if you think that somebody is possessed and somebody is inherently evil, the only way to get rid of that is to kill them. And if you have doubts, if you're not zealous, and if you're not sure about whether someone is good or evil, or whether they have just evil intents at a particular time, then you're much less likely to kill them. Also, on the homicide thing, if you believe that human bodies are just soul traps, where the whole purpose of the body is to die to release the soul to go off to heaven, then you're going to devalue human life. It's just that simple. So these beliefs, religious zeal, the belief in good and evil, and the soul trap belief, I think, are the causes of the high homicide rate. I might be wrong. There might be other causes. It might be difficult to discern the causes, but that's my armchair explanation for why that is. So I think it's obvious that if you have those beliefs, you're going to have more homicide in a particular society. Now, for suicide, it's a little bit different thing. It turns out religious societies have a lower suicide rate in general, except for teen suicides, which I'm going to focus on a little bit later. But suicide rates, there's a strong religious taboo against suicide, because otherwise people would just off themselves and try to go to heaven, right, if they didn't do that. You've talked about that recently, Matt. And then there's also this belief that you don't own your own life. Or that you're part of a greater purpose. So if you kill yourself, you're going to defeat that purpose. Let's talk about life expectancy. This is another negative one. People don't live as long in religious societies, and of course, if they're killed by homicide, they're not going to be living as long. So that's one reason why there might be a lower life expectancy. But when people believe in faith healing and they believe in prayer as medicine, they're not going to seek medical care and get the medical care that they deserve. Right? They're going to go to quack faith healers instead of and they're going to not live as long. That's pretty obvious. Also, we have in our society, we have the suppression of education and research, things like stem cell research and suppression of belief in evolution or understanding of evolution. And these things are very important to understand life and medicine and these sorts of things. And if you have generally an ignorant society about life-extending technologies, sciences and technologies, that society is not going to live as long. So I think that's pretty clear. Traditionally, the Catholic Church prevented people from opening up dead bodies to understand how the anatomy worked and how the human body worked. They were terrified that people would look in there and not find the soul, because they knew that there wasn't a soul. So there's a big taboo against that. That actually inhibited science and medicine for many, many years. And it was when that got released during the during the Renaissance that branch of science leapt forward, once that was restricted. Infant mortality, same sort of thing. If you have faith healing and prayer, if you're going to sit home and pray that God's going to heal your kid, then the kid's going to potentially die. If you have religious restrictions against things like blood transfusions, that's a problem. I think that women who have postpartum depression and who are religious are much less likely to get help from medical people. They're more likely to get help from praying or whatever, and that's not real help. So I think the mental health of the parents is not necessarily that good. So